All right, high rollers, we are less than a week away from the Alley Pally, the World Darts Championships, baby. Can Rob Cross defend the title? Will MVG make it 3? How about Gary Anderson, Peter Wright, or Daryl Gurney? Or will one player come from nowhere to topple the favorites? Our guest today, I know, is just as excited as I am. Forget Christmas, it's Dartsmas. This guy runs a great darts blog, dartsweb.wordpress.com. He can be found at dartsweb1 on Twitter. A great resource for darts info, profiles, news updates, results. Again, it's dartsweb.wordpress.com. Thomas Bartley joins us. Thomas, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being our high roller today.
Thanks, Derek. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here. You recently did a great interview with darts legend Keith Deller, 1983 world champion. You received a lot of attention for that, especially on social media. But first off, man, I love the blog. Can you tell us about Darts Web?
Well, I've been a darts fan for quite a few years now, and not long after I began following the sport quite intensely, it sort of seemed obvious to me that I would want to write about it and get more involved in it. And the darts community on Twitter and Facebook and everything is really supportive. Everybody's really nice and really interested in the articles and stuff. So it just seemed like a natural thing for me to do. I started it about 2.5 years ago. Since then I've done over 200 articles, over 50 interviews, talked to lots of different people, got in contact with lots of different people. So yeah, it's been brilliant.
Well, that's great, man. 50 interviews. I'm sure you've learned a lot about darts in the time, especially being a darts fan. You must really enjoy the process.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, sometimes you do have to pinch yourself when you're in communication with people. You know, some of the interviews, some of the people I've had the pleasure to speak to over that time, people like John Lowe, Bob Anderson, Keith Deller, John Part as well. Lots of really interesting people, lots of really interesting articles, and yeah, like you said, I have learned a lot about the sport. There's a lot that, from just watching it, you maybe don't get that sort of insightful view of the sport. And to speak to these people who have, you know, cumulatively spent hundreds of years in the sport is brilliant.
Yeah, and as a fan, when you watch these guys on TV, the legends of the past, the guys nowadays, I imagine you play darts. I mean, they make it look so easy.
Yeah, the quality nowadays is absolutely fantastic. I think MVG, sometimes you have to question whether or not he's human or not. He's so fantastic, and it seems so natural to him as well. I mean, watching his throwing action is brilliant, and I think the quality is just going up and up. It just seems every season, you know, averages in tournaments go up and up. Performances on TV, people aren't scared to play the big players, whereas, you know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, when you were coming up against full of power, players may have falters towards the end of the games. Nowadays, they just seem fearless.
What do you attribute the fine play these days to? I say, you know, it's the increased prize pools, the chance to make a real good living. And when that's out there and available, the players take it that much more serious in terms of practice, maybe their rest periods, maybe their diet even. Some guys, even their workout schedule. The game is slowly changing, and you see now that everybody's so good, there's upsets all over the place.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the whole image of darts and the whole image of a darts player has changed since the 80s, when it was obviously the most recent peak, excluding now, when players, you know, there was this whole image of darts players as drinking a lot and smoking a lot. And I'm not saying that was untrue necessarily, because if you look at any footage from the 80s, you know, most players had a cigarette in their mouth or a pint in one hand, you know. So I'm not saying that that's untrue, but I think definitely since the sort of rebirth through the PDC and through people like Barry Hearn really helping the sport grow, I think we have seen a change in attitudes from the players. And I think, like you say, the prize money has a big effect, but also just generally the fact that these players can survive playing darts and can make a living playing darts has just really encouraged them to put a lot more effort in, like you said.
It's like the pot of gold is there if you put the time in and you really, really want it. And you're good enough. You got to be good enough, too. I mean, a lot of these guys are so good, but some of the guys just have a step ahead, whether it's their mental game or whether it's just pure skill.
Yeah, you're right. There is obviously different levels. Any sport will have its elite, you know, it's sort of semi-professional level. You know, there's a lot of players in the PDC now. It would be very wrong to suggest that anybody inside the top 64 on their day could not be your Michael Van Gerwens, your Gary Andersons, your Rob Crosses, because they can. They have the ability, whether they've shown that on the tour already, or whether they've shown that in Super League, county level, wherever. They are good enough. And I think most players now, when they do see these players on TV, when you're coming up the ranks, or whether you're a youth player or whatever, it must be a huge incentive to go and practice. You know, when you watch these 115 averages on TV, I mean, the first place you'll be going after that will be the practice board, I don't doubt that.
Now, as mentioned, you got a lot of great content on your blog. Again, it's dartsweb.wordpress.com. You did a profile on us. We really appreciate that. You've also reached out to a lot of darts content providers, Darts Planet TV. I see you had Josh's Dartistry on there, just to name two. What's been the most enlightening thing about talking to guys like us, guys who just love the darts?
Well, I think it just cemented my opinion that the darts community, you know, from being on Twitter and being on forums and whatever, I think there's no bitterness, there's no nastiness at all. Well, obviously there's going to be some, but I think on the whole, it's a very friendly and very welcoming community to be a part of. Whereas, you know, in football, I think when it is a lot more tribal with teams and whatnot, there tends to be a lot more acrimony. So I think, you know, I've found that people are extremely passionate. People have great knowledge. I mean, you talk about the darts content providers, you know, some of the people that I've spoken to, reached out to, like Burton DeWitt, for example, you know, the fantastic stats and data that people like him, Carl Fletcher, Christopher Kent compile is absolutely fantastic. And I think, you know, if you were to ask some of the old greats 20, 30 years ago whether they thought darts would be like this now, you know, maybe they would have laughed at you in the face.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the boom is on. Darts is worldwide now. I just love to watch the World Championships, all the fancy dress, all the atmosphere, the noise, the chants, everything. We're going to talk about the Worlds, but hey, you mentioned the growth of the PDC. You just interviewed one of the main reasons for that growth, a legend of the game, the 83 World Champion, Keith Deller. You got a lot of praise for that on social media, too. A lot of people really enjoyed that piece. Wow, what a player, right? Keith Deller.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant to speak to Keith. Like you said, a visionary seems a bit too fancy a word, because really, you know, it was an extremely bitter time in darts history during the split. You know, when a lot of the leading players left the BDO to set up the World Darts Council, as it was at the time, the WDC, before it became the PDC. But I mean, Keith is an absolute legend. You know, he's one of the most popular, one of the most famous darts players of that era. He's continued his involvement all these years. You know, he's worked with Adrian Lewis on a few occasions, still works with him now. He works as a spotter for Sky, which is, I know, he really enjoys. And yeah, I mean, Keith's fantastic. It was great to speak to him.
Yeah, you mentioned Eric Bristow and Keith Deller's long career in the game, and you got to think back to 1983. I mean, he comes from nowhere to win the world title. He had to beat the best of the best just to get to the final, and then the very best in the final. And that 138 checkout will go down in infamy. I mean, what a shot at what a time that was.
Yeah, it's a brilliant checkout. I mean, if you were to pick one visit to the hockey that sort of defines darts history to date, you'd really struggle to not pick that 138 in terms of what it meant for Keith to win as a qualifier, to win that Lakeside title, but just what it means for darts history. You know, I'm sure lots of people watching that will still fondly remember that to this day. And I mean, it was a fantastic checkout, great bottle to take it out, and to almost outwit Eric as well, which is no easy job, to almost con him into to go into that single 18 to leave the double 16 rather than going to the ball was very wise of Keith, and a fantastic checkout at the end as well.
Well, it was a proper checkout at the most opportune time. I mean, to win it all. I remember the Sid Waddell call. He said Bristow did the percentage shot, Deller did the business. I mean, that was under all kinds of pressure, and what an upset, because he really was a no-name at the time, correct?
Yeah, that's right. First qualifier to win a video world championship. Yeah, relatively unknown. So yeah, it must have been incredible for him to go there at 21 years of age at the lakeside in this sort of quite ultra-masculine environment with all these huge, towering darts players that I'm sure he was very fond of, and the whole darts community to break into it so suddenly. I mean, you could draw comparisons with Rob Cross, although not quite the same situation because obviously the two has changed a bit. We have seen Rob on TV quite a few times before he won his World Championship early this year. But yeah, it's incredible for Keith. I'm sure he doesn't get sick of when people come up to him in the streets or at events and say, that 138 checkout, because really that's defined his entire career.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to enjoy that, a defining and iconic moment in darts history. And I wonder, there's got to be a lot of gratitude in it as well, because that one shot or that one match really shaped his career. You mentioned it. Darts exhibitions, Adrian Lewis's manager, all the TV commentary. He's highly involved in the game, very looked up to. I mean, you talk about the what ifs in sport. What if Eric Bristow went for bull and nailed it? Or what if Deller doesn't come perfect on the 138 and Bristow pins the double 16? I mean, everything changes.
Yeah, and to be honest, that links back to what you said at the start. That's why we love the darts. Yeah. Firstly, Keith being 21, being a qualifier, being relatively unknown, and his life changing in that split second, hitting that double 12, fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, it was incredible for Keith's career, and yeah, like you say, if he hadn't have hit that, or if Eric had took that risk and gone for the ball and hit it, then who knows how time would have changed.
Deller and Bristow, of course, linked with that final, forever linked, of course, in darts history, the game changer. You mentioned it earlier, the split in darts. It took a lot of guts. One of the quotes from your interview it stands out for me is that all these players wouldn't be millionaires if it wasn't for that decision back in, 93 was it?
Yeah, that I thought that was really quite a poignant quote as well from Keith when he said that. It is really fascinating that's how they look back on it, and it just shows really that despite all of the acrimony and the bitterness, the nastiness that they went through, and the vitriol that was thrown around between, the BDO directors and the breakaway players, that still all those years later, with all that in the past behind them, that they still feel like they made the right decision. And to be honest, if you had made that, you would feel a little bit pleased with yourself, wouldn't you? Really, you'd be when every time you turn on the TV and you see the darts and you see these huge crowds and the massive prize pools, you must think, I've been a part of this and I've led the way for this current generation. And I only hope that the current field of darts players do appreciate what those breakaway players did.
Yeah, and the darting world lost a legend earlier this year, Eric Bristow, of course. Rest in peace, crafty Cockney. Keith Deller was right there to do some fine commentary, some nice words on the night he passed away. At the darts, fitting it seems, right? Okay, the World Championships, the biggest field ever, 96 players. It's about to get crazy, man. Are you pumped or what?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's a brilliant way to end the year, and I think the fact that it is set around this time of Christmas means that everyone just gets really pumped for it. The whole darts community, all the players, well, they do centre their year around the World Championship, and it is such a huge event. The crowds, the Alexandra Palace is an incredible venue, and it seems almost contrasting with the darts. It is sort of majestic and quite. You wouldn't. The two don't seem to go together, but when you go in there, it really does come alive, and I think it's a fantastic event, and yeah, I think the increased field this year makes it a lot more exciting.
Just a sidebar real quick, because I've been watching the UK Open Snooker Championships all week, and I often wonder about the crowd differences. I mean, it's very high drama in the snooker as well, but the crowd is silent during play. I imagine it's the venue because they're right in the center and it's like an auditorium, whereas the dart players are on a stage, the crowd behind them. But I got to tell you, watching the darts with the atmosphere, especially at the World Championships, is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's interesting you say about the snooker as well, because that is something that I thought about before, that really, Barry Hearn and Matchroom Sport have involvement in both the snooker and the darts, and it is quite interesting that they see sort of money to be made there, and they're both sports. Snooker hasn't really changed as much in its image over the years, even though it is still extremely popular, massive prize funds and all the rest that comes with that. But with darts, it does seem that it's been in a sort of evolution over the years. What I was talking about earlier with the image of darts players and the image of the sport as this sort of drinking, smoking area, and the players weren't particularly fit and in good health. But now that image is slowly changing, and yet the atmosphere at darts nowadays is totally revolutionised. And I think the cost of the price of a ticket and the value of a ticket to go to the darts is priceless.
Well, I've never been to the Alley Pally for the World Championships, but it must be quite a spectacle to behold. And anybody's got tickets this year, just enjoy yourself. It really is Dartsmas. Okay, 4 brackets. Let's go 1 through 4. In the first bracket, I see a couple of interesting matchups. Maybe get your thoughts. James Wade, the 9th seed, gets the winner of Krzysztof Ratajski and Sego Asada. I mean, welcome to the World Championships, Mr. Wade. That's not easy. And then you've got Simon, who could possibly hook up with Anastasia in his opening round matchup, but I'm sure Ryan Joyce will have something to say about that. Also in that bracket, I see 32 seed Max Hopp. He gets the winner of Danny Noppert and Royden Lamb. Now, there's no easy game at the World Championship, but those are all tough openers. Not to mention the fact that if you get through and you want to go on to win the tournament, you got to survive Michael Van Gerwen in that bracket.
Yeah, the first quarter it's incredible. I read an interesting stat the other day from Chris Kempso, I mentioned earlier, on the PDC website, that the top 8, not even the top quarter, but the top 8 of the draw, holds more world titles than the remaining 7/8 of the entire draw. It's quite incredible that we have Michael Van Gerwen, Adrian Lewis, Raymond van Barneveld, all in that top section of the draw. And then, like you say, if Michael manages to come through that, then the bottom section of that first quarter looks really tough as well, with James Wade. Not an easy game for him, whether it's Ratajski or whether Asada upsets the apple cart and knocks Krzysztof out. But Krzysztof looked in fantastic form at Minehead, and you do think you can't really call the Wade Ratajski game. I think it's a very close matchup. And yeah, like you said, Van Gerwen, also Raymond van Barneveld, potential second match for them, tied with Adrian Lewis. So that would be a brilliant game as well. And then if you could get through that, possibly the prospect of a third tie with Van Gerwen at the Alexandra Palace in 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, whoever comes out of that bracket is going to be playing with some high confidence as they move forward, so it's going to be very interesting to watch. Right off the bat in the second quarter bracket, I see that 5th seed Daryl Gurney will face the winner of Ross Smith and Paul Lim. 2 very tough players there. Darren Webster may meet Vincent Vandervoort in his opening tie, so the second bracket's got some interest as well.
Yeah, the second quarter is really interesting. I think it's wide open, really. I think not many people would have anticipated Daryl Gurney winning the Players' Championship finals the other week, but he played fantastic throughout the tournament, but particularly I thought on that last day, on the Sunday, we know how a lot of these ITV events work, that, you have the quarterfinals, the semi-finals and the final in a day, and I think often people underestimate how much that must take out of the players, because I understand that, you look at the European Tour and whatnot, where they do play multiple games in a day, but that's 3 long length games to win in a day, and to beat Van Gerwen in the final as well was incredible. So it wouldn't surprise me if Gurney came through that quarter, but again, we've got Barry Anderson, who might play Paul Nicholson or Kevin Burness, so that's a really tough game as well. Yeah, Paul Lim might even beat Daryl Gurney, so who knows if Daryl Gurney can even get through his first match. Like you said, it's the World Championship, anything can happen.
That's what we love about it. I'll be rooting for Paul Lim. I will not be rooting against Ross Smith. He's a former guest of ours, but it would be nice to see the legend Paul Lim take on Daryl Gurney in that opening round tie. Okay, third bracket now. The third quarter, we've got Rob Cross, the defending champ. His potential first round match as he tries to go back-to-back could be Jeffrey Desvaughn, a so-called giant killer.
Yeah. If there was anybody in the draw for the World Championship that Rob Cross would be looking to avoid in his first match, I think it would probably be Jeffrey Desvaughn, considering he's beat Van Gerwen twice on TV this year alone, and he had that brilliant run for the World Match Play semi-final. it's a really tough one to call. I think there's absolutely no guarantee that Rob will even get through his first game. I do think with Rob, though, I don't know if the pressure's quite come off yet of being world champion. Obviously, there's going to be the pressure of defending his title, but I think considering how he's played recently and how he's played on the TV stage more pertinently, I don't think many people will be backing him to retain his title. So maybe he might feel, you know what, this is the last tournament I'm going to have where I don't have any points to defend, because of course last year was his first year on the PDC Pro Tour. He might just think, you know what, let me see how far I can get in this tournament. It's another chance to do well at the Ali Pali, and all of a sudden we might see the weight lift off. But we have to make a sort of logical conclusion based on form, and on form you wouldn't really fancy Rob to come through that.
Well, I'll tell you what, if he goes into his bubble like he did last year, we know he's got the stuff to pull it off. He's got the minerals, as they say. Okay, Mensur, he might be in for a tough game in that section. Ryan Searle or the red-hot Stephen Burton, he played well at the Players' Championship Finals.
Yeah, it's a really tough game for Mensur as well. I think he will feel a little bit under pressure at the Ali Pali, because he's never got past the last 16. Last year he lost to Dimitri van den Berg quite convincingly, and I think maybe he will be looking. I don't think his Premier League space is in doubt, and I don't think particularly he's under any pressure. But I think he will be looking to have a good World Championship, and I think facing Ryan Searle, who had a good year on the PDC Pro Tour, or Stephen Burton, like you said, who got to the quarterfinals of the Players' Championship finals, Minehead the other week, is a really tough matchup, and even then, it's a potential tie with Michael Smith in the fourth round or his third match. So that's a really tough tie as well.
And in the fourth quarter, the one that interests me at least is Lisa Ashton versus Jan Decker, and the winner to play Mervyn King. No offense, Jan, but go Lisa.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Jan is booed onto the stage at Ali Pali. It seems like he's the most unpopular man in darts at the moment. Everyone's rooting for Lisa to come through that game, and it will be tough. It will be tough for Jan, but I think it'll be tough for Lisa as well. Jan will want a point to prove. He's a former video world semi-finalist, so he won't be feeling too much pressure playing against Lisa, because I think he knows that on his day, if this was a match in the practice room, away from that, the prying eyes of the fans, that Jan would win 9 times out of 10. I think he has just got that edge on Lisa, but I think Lisa is a phenomenal player. 4 times world champion now, and if Lisa did come through that, then Mervyn King as well. He'll fear his place in the tournament, because once Lisa's on a roll, she's on a roll.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I love the fact that women are in the tournament this year, Anastasia and Lisa. And you know what? If they pull off some upsets, the crowd's going to be with them, and it's going to be very fun to watch. That's the main thing for me. I think those dramatic scenes, if Jan gets booed, it's going to be fun to watch no matter what happens.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm really pleased for the ladies this year that Barry Hearn and the PDC have made the step to include 2 qualifiers in the tournament. I will admit I would have loved to have seen Peter Hedman there as well, considering she was the first woman to beat a man on TV in the history. How many years has she been playing this sport? A hugely long time. But Lisa, really, realistically, if you could have asked for any 2 players to have come through that UK qualifier and that rest of the world qualifier, it would have been Lisa, it would have been Anastasia, because they're incredible players, and I don't think that any of the men in this field will take them lightly.
Absolutely not. Every match is important. A lot of money on the line, a lot of ranking points. Of course, the darts glory and their history in the sport. So a lot up for grabs. MVG, the favorite, he's going to be ready. He's had a poor year considering his past results, but he'll be gunning for this one. dartsweb.wordpress.com, at dartsweb1 on Twitter. Great resource for darts info, profiles, news updates, results. Again, dartsweb.wordpress.com. Thomas Bartley, man, enjoy the World Championships. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.